This is page 17, number 49, raise and lower. Before we play this piece, we're going to talk about why it's called raise and lower. This is our first piece where we're going to be changing strings. So it's important for us to learn how to change strings while we bow. That involves changing the height of our arm. Cello and bass, it'll be coming big from the shoulder here. Violins and violas, it is also kind of from your shoulder. So we're going to practice that first before we play the piece. So with my instrument up, I'm going to first check my bow hold. I always check my bow hold. We're going to practice this raising and lowering first before we play the piece. Is your thumb bent outward? Is my pinky, violins and violas, on top of my bow, curved and relaxed? Cellos, your pinky would be over. Basses, you either have your pinky over in your French bow hold or you have your relaxed and rounded German bow hold. And then all we're going to do first, we're going to take our bow and we're going to take the middle of the bow and we're going to place it on our A string. I'm not making any noise yet, it's just on my A string. And I'm going to do some teeter-tottering, where I notice that if I raise my shoulder, violins and violas, I go to my next string down. Cello and bass, you actually lower your arm to go to your next string down. So your A is here, you're going to lower down to your D. Okay, basses, it's G down to D. So find your A string. Now you're going to rock to your D string. You might be going a different direction if you're a different instrument than me, but you're thinking about rocking your arm to get there. Can you rock to your G string? Again, I'm not making any noise. I'm just rocking my bow. Rock back to your D. Can you rock to your A? Rock to either your C or E string, whichever one you have. That might be a big swing for some of you. Notice that my arm is staying relaxed. I'm just raising and lowering my shoulder angle to get my bow where it needs to be. Go back to your A, D, G, C or E, A, D, and A. Good. So in this raise and lower, that's what we're going to be practicing. I don't think we need to say our note names. We know them. We have 4 A's. And then we have 4 D's. Remember that your down bow is the one that's the pull bow, and we're starting with a down bow. That's that symbol that looks like the little square without its bottom. Okay, up bows are the V shape. And in our rests, we're gonna be lowering or raising our arm to get to the next string. So we're gonna go through this once, we'll check and see how we did, and then we'll do it again. Remember, there is a repeat. Here we go. Set your bow, 2, ready, and lower your arm, D string, change, go. Rock back to your A string, go. Rock to your D string, go. Good, pause right there. Okay, remember the direction's different based on what instrument. So if I said raise or lower and you're confused because it's the opposite direction, every instrument has their own direction for their A and D strings. But the idea is that we are moving our shoulder up or down to get to the next string. I'm also still making sure that I'm bowing on my bowing highway. I'm not bowing up over the fingerboard. I'm bowing a straight line. I'm using violins and violas almost entirely, my elbow and a loose wrist to get that straight bow. Cello bass, I'm using my whole arm to get an open straight bow. And I'm getting a good sound on my instrument. There is a definitive start and stop to the sound every time. So let's do this one more time. Instruments up. Here we go. 1, 2, A string, go. Rock to your D string, go. Rock to your A string, go. Rock to your D string, go. And there you go. Okay, practice that if you're having trouble changing between strings. Make sure you're being very targeted on where you're rocking to so you don't rock too far and hit your G string or your C or your E string. Practice that targeted rocking from one string to another. This is page 17, number 50, Teeter Totter. The purpose of this exercise is to get more practice rocking our arm between strings. This one gives us less time to get between strings, which is good practice for us. As always, you want to make sure you have a good bow hold when you play, and you want to be working on getting a good sound, bowing on your highway, having a start and a stop to your sound, and getting a clean, crisp noise, one string at a time, not hitting multiple strings. Let's start by singing our note names just so that we can check in on where we're at. Here we go, teeter totter. 1, 2, ready, and A, rest, rest, D, D, rest, rest, A, rest, rest, D, D, rest. Good. Very straightforward. So now we're going to put our instruments up. Remember to think about which way you're rocking your arm. It's different for all the instruments. Remember, you're going to set your bow near the frog, not right at it, but near the frog on your strings. You're going to be right in the highway, and you're going to get a good sound. Here we go. Here's our first time through teeter totter. And rock, go. Rock to A. Rock to D. Good. If you need to take more time to go through that, you can. I'm going to play it once more through with the music. Ready, and rock to D. Rock back to A. To D. Remember, you can always practice this exercise on a toilet paper tube, in your elbow. You can flip it upside down, violins and violas, to keep getting that straight bow going and to practice your rocking. This is page 17, number 51, mirror image. We are doing more practicing bowing our open strings with being able to raise or lower our arm to change strings. We're still working on getting a great sound with a start and a stop to our sound on our bow, a good bow hold, and a nice full resonant tone. Make sure you're leaning in, especially cellos, leaning in on that first finger to get a good sound. Your thumb is bent outwards, all violin and viola and cello. Basses, your thumb is bent outwards if you're on a French bow, or your fingers are rounded and relaxed if you're on a German bow. Let's sing or speak our note names for mirror image. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and A, rest. D, 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 rest. A, rest. D, D, D. Good. I'm going to do this one on cello so you can see how my arm moves and you can see my raising and lowering on a cello. Here we go. First time through. Rest. You'll notice that I set my bow on the string. I'm in my highway between the end of the fingerboard and the bridge. My bow is going straight. If I'm a cello or a bass, I'm opening up my whole arm. My wrist is relaxed. I worked on my rocking in between. I had only one beat of rest to rock that bow. So you can even practice rocking quickly. Set your bow on your A string. Rock to D. G. Back to D. A. Cello is one thing. When you go to your A string, don't go up really, really high like this. Keep your shoulder relaxed and dropped. Notice I don't raise my shoulder when I go to my A string. It's relaxed and dropped. I just open up my shoulder a little bit more. We'll go through mirror image one more time. Set your bow on the A string, and here we go. 2, ready, and rock. is page 17, number 52, a strand of DNA. In this one, we're gonna have to rock between strings with no rest. Additionally, we are gonna learn about our bow lift. A lift, or sometimes called a reset or a retake, is when we pick our bow up off the string and replace or reset it near the frog. So if I were to set my bow here and I pull a down bow, now my bow is at the tip. I could do an up bow to get back, or I could pick up my bow and make like a little bit of a rainbow, okay, a little arc, and reset it at the tip. So let's try a few of these together. Here we go. We're gonna pull a down bow, and then we're gonna reset our bow for 2 beats and set it, and then we'll be ready to go. Down bow starts, 1, 2, go. Down, lift, set. Down, lift, set. Down, lift, set. Down, lift, set. Double check that you're doing that correctly. You are making an arc. I pick my bow up and I reset it back at the frog. That is our lift. We're going to need that in a strand of DNA. Let's start by speaking or singing our note names. I see that there's a repeat at the end of this one, so I'm gonna play through it twice. Here we go, speaking or singing. 1, 2, ready, and D, 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 A, 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 D, D, A, A, D, rest, lift, repeat. D, 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 A, 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 D, D, A, A, D, rest, rest, rest. If you haven't learned about bridge bowing yet, cellos, and it does work for basses, you can always practice the bow motion silently by taking your bow, going underneath your strings, and letting your bow rest kind of against the edge of the bridge. You can move your bow back and forth comfortably without a lot of tension in your hand. Notice I can still wiggle my fingers. I can get that straight bow motion without making any noise out loud. So I could practice this one, D, 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 quietly without playing out loud while still practicing my bow motion. Basses, yours won't reach all the way down to the bridge, but you can lean your bow up against the face of your instrument and get a good straight bow sound. Let's try this one out loud. Getting a good sound, check your bow hold. Make sure you're on your bowing highway. You are getting a start and a stop to every note, and you're thinking about, it's a lot to put together. You're thinking about the raising and lowering of your arm, as well as our lift on our repeat. Here we go. Set your bow on the D string. 2, ready, and lift, repeat, go. Good. Double check. Did you get a clean sound? Did you raise and lower your arm properly? Did you get the lift? Address all of those. You can always go back earlier in the video or pause the video here and review those concepts. Review the lift. Review your straight bowing. Review your rocking your arm. We're going to go through a strand of DNA one more time. Lift and repeat. This is page 17, number 53, Essential Elements Quiz, Olympic Challenge. On this one, we're working on raising and lowering our arm, getting a good sound on our instrument, going the correct bow direction, bowing on our highway, and playing the correct notes and rhythms. We only play this once through. There are no lifts we need to worry about, but let's start by singing our note names in rhythm. Here we go. D, 1, 2, ready, and D, D, A, 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 D, D, A, A, D, D, D. That one's tricky. We have to raise and lower our arm a lot. Let's try and do a form of shadow bowing it. If you have a toilet paper tube, you can use that. If you are a violin or viola and you want to bow in the crook of your elbow, you can, or up on your shoulder, you can. Cellos and basses, I'm going to do bridge bowing, where I put my bow underneath the strings on the face of my instrument. And let's think about bowing through this one together. Here we go. 1, get your bow set. 1, 2, try it, and D, D, A, 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 D, D, A, A, D, D, D. Did you think about where you had to rock your arm when you had to go up and down? Let's give this one a try once through, then we'll reassess and we'll see how we did. Here's our first time through. Make sure you set your bow near the frog on the string, not right at it, but near it, and right on your bowing highway. 2, ready, and rest, and did you get all the right notes? If you didn't, go back through and practice just using the bow, shadow bowing, and think about when you have to raise and lower and when you're going from D to your A or the other way around. Make sure you're getting a clean sound with a start and a stop. You're thinking about starting with your pull bow, your down bow, and you have a good bow hold. We'll go through this one more time. Here's our Olympic challenge. Set your bow. And